we will be looking at the negation of a conditional statement, what that means, what that looks like. And the second thing is, and some of you will now, I think, be happy because you wanted to do this anyways, Demorgan's laws. Okay? That is going to help us YouTube and I can wait. Not a big deal. Thank you.
What's up, YouTube?
So, Demorgan's laws is going to help you do what a lot of you wanted to do when you saw a negation in front of a sentence. You know how some of you were like trying to distribute and negate both things, and so we said, well, no, don't do that yet. We don't have to. There's going to be a way to do it, and that's going to be today. Okay? But let's start with the basics here. So number one, okay, we kind of talked about this a little bit yesterday, but here's an example. If you get a 95% average on homework, then you get a 2% bonus. Okay? And this is the key to figure out what the negation is going to be for this if-then statement, is what would have to happen in order for you to say, oh, you lied to us. Okay? And we talked about this yesterday a little bit, but if I offer you this incentive, you get a 95 on homework, then you get a 2% bonus, when would you be upset? When would you say I lied to you? And what else? And you did get a 95 on homework. So you see right there how we said that. What word did I use? And. So I just want you to remember that. Okay? When you negate an if-then sentence, the negation turns into an and. Statement. Sorry, I ran out of space. Okay? So the negation of an if-then is going to turn into an and statement. Okay? And we're going to go ahead and prove that. Okay? Logically, just from that scenario, I think that makes some sense, but let's look at why using truth tables. So here's your standard combinations of P's and Q's. When is an if-then sentence false again? When it's true, then false. Very good. And every other case is true. Okay, so naturally, if we're negating something, right? Yesterday we looked at the last column being exactly the same. If that happens, what are they called? You're thinking of something else. Tautology is all true. If I were to get a different sentence, but I ended up with TFTT for the last column, what does that mean? They're equivalent. Yeah, they're the same. Okay?
Let's go with it.
Now, if I wanted to negate this, what should my last column be if I want it to have the opposite meaning? False, true, false, false. So if I see that for my last column, then naturally that shows that whatever sentence I'm looking at, that's the negation of the first one. And so here's what we're looking at now for the second sentence. So true, 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 false, false, true. Again, standard combo. And before I actually do this, I would have to look at the negation of Q. So that's false, true, true. And now, when is an and statement true? Both true. So I'm looking at this column and this column. Oh, wrong ones. This column and this one, the first and third one. And I see true, true right here, and that's it. Okay. So do you guys see exact opposites here?
Yes.
Okay. So that means, let's see. So since the negation of if P, then Q, so if I were to negate this column, here's what I get. we say that those are equivalent. And so is the negation of these, okay? So ultimately, here's what you need to know now, right here. The negation of an if-then sentence, if P then Q, is P and not Q. Okay? Let's just do this example right here. If there is a lot of snow, then all schools will be closed. So let's say P is there is a lot of snow. And let's say Q is all schools will be closed. Okay? What are the symbols that I would need for this sentence? If there's a lot of snow, then all schools will be closed. How do I translate? If P, then Q. Good. And now what is the negation? P and the negation of Q. Okay? So that's symbolically what it would look like. In words, what does this translate to? Yes, so there's, whoops, not also. There is a lot of snow and all schools are not closed. Okay? So if then, when you negate, becomes and. Any questions on that? Okay. Let's look at example 3. Here's another scenario. And by the way, it should be this in parentheses. So for those of you that were gone yesterday, okay, remember you have the notes available to you via a YouTube link on the calendar, but we can quickly at least get part of that now. Who can tell us what a contrapositive is again? What do we do? Jason? You flip it and you negate both. Okay, so if I'm looking at this sentence here and I want to write the contrapositive, now I would, instead of negation of R, I would write R first, but then I would negate the first part. Okay? You guys see how we're doing that there? You flip both halves, negate both parts, and so now R is no longer negated because we flipped that around, and then this first half, which wasn't, is negated. Okay? Now that we've talked about how to negate an if-then, we can go one step further. So this would be the same as if R, then how do I negate this if-then sentence? Becomes an and. So it's P and Q. You negate the second part. Okay? So this would be the contrapositive simplified. Okay? Any questions? Okay. We're going to skip example 4 because we've done this already. So example 4 is just more practice of what we learned yesterday, writing the converse, writing the inverse, doing the contrapositive, but then also writing it symbolically and negating the if-then part. We're not going to worry about that. So let's just skip this because we've already done it. Let's go on to Demorgan's laws. Okay? What I would like for you to do okay, is just go ahead and start example 5. Okay, and show, okay, so take a minute, work on it, and then check with your group. Let's see if everybody has the same truth tables. Hey, did you find your notes, Ryan? Ignore the first several pages now. All right, so Amy will walk us through. I know she's been gone, but they're clearly done over here.
Okay, I'll do it.
So what's the next? What should the next column be? Help her out, group.
No, I'm kidding. He said I have to do it. P, Q.
This is classic.
Okay,
I love
true,
it.
false, false, false.
True, false, false, false. You said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, negation, P, Q. Then false, true, true, true.
Okay.
Good job.
And so now, here's the second table. This one I'll quickly do. Negation of P, false, false, true, true. Negation of Q is false, true, false, true. Now we have an OR statement. When is an OR statement true?
One of them's true.
If one of them's true, good. So that means false for the first one, true for everything else. And look at this. They're equivalent. Okay? So, this is essentially a proof of why Demorgan's laws work. Okay? So here's what you need to take or gather from this, all right? So if you look at Demorgan's laws, you have a negation on the outside and an and statement on the inside. When you guys saw this before, a lot of you wanted to like distribute that negation. Do you guys remember doing that? Well, you can, but what happens? It becomes an or. Do you guys see what I'm saying? Yes. So everything changes. Negation, the and flips over and is now an or, and then you negate the second part too. The other way around, it works just the same. So right here, we have the negation of an or sentence. You still negate P, you still negate Q, but now the or becomes an and.
What if it's not like an or and?
Well, then we don't have a way of doing that. Okay, but we do have ways of negating. Well, I take that back. Kyle, the first thing we did, so we have three things that we can negate. We now know how to negate an if-then sentence, right?
Oh yeah.
So we know how to negate an if-then sentence, and we know how to negate ors, and we know how to negate ands. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Let's go on to the last page, because I think the next one is just blank. Okay. I would like for you to, let's just do one of these. We're going to do part B, and then example 7. And you should have parentheses around this first part right here. Okay? So let's try this and actually, do what I said this time instead of not doing it, and then we'll go over it. Example B, and then also example 7. Yes, there are. Mm-hmm.
So, how do we write like but? Is that or? What is it?
Here?
Yeah, that but.
Oh, but yeah, that's an and. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This is if it is not, but there's like given it's still in
It's implied. So if it is not windy, then we can swim, but we cannot sail.
Yeah.
You're always
Oh, right.
You don't put any balls in.
I hate
Are you serious? No, not happy with the like.
No, because like it's like you're trying to enjoy it and then one of them and then you don't have chill.
You don't have that many balls in your mouth.
Oh no. Hey, how would you rate these?
Oh yeah, they're over. Right. Yeah. Oh, I just used the last one.
Wow, just rub it in.
you still have to. I got that. Yeah, no, it's paper. Take that.
Oh, I can't do the chair.
Okay.
Amy, let's see. Ridiculous.
So, just to make sure everybody's on the same page, W for me is going to be, it is windy. S is going to be, we can swim. And then I'm not going to use S again, but I'll use A. We can sail.
I used to.
Look at that. All right. So in symbolic form, if it is not windy, that means negation of W. Then we can swim, but we cannot sail. So we can swim is S. But and are really the same thing. Cannot sail, that's negation of A. Okay? So this is the sentence in symbolic form. Yes?
If for the symbolic form we put W is it is not windy, and then in the symbolic we just didn't use negation. Is that still correct?
As long as it's defined?
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. So your answer is going to be a little different than,
Yeah.
but as long as everything matches, yeah, totally fine. So now, writing an equivalent statement in symbolic form. So here we have an if-then. We're not really negating the whole thing. So the only other thing that we know how to do is use the contrapositive. Contrapositive always gives us an equivalent statement, okay? So how do I write the contrapositive of this?
Flip and negate.
So you flip
Flip.
and negate. So the first part is now negated. The second part is now the first part without the negation symbol.
Does that say S and negation?
Yes. And last, we can go one step further now because we just talked about how you can actually distribute this negation symbol. If we're negating an and statement, what does it turn into?
Or.
An or. And now it's the negation of S and just regular A. Okay. All right. Now in words, we can say if we can't swim or sail, then it is windy. So Jared, here's where I would know if you did this right. You should still have the same sentence.
We still had both.
That's fine. If we can't swim, well, oh, yeah, that should be,
Yeah, we didn't negate.
yeah. Okay. All right. Last example. And for the 1/3 of you that are actually paying attention and will get A's, here you go. We're writing the contrapositive of this weird symbolic statement. So again, you just flip and negate. And now you're just negating an or sentence, also negating an and sentence. So now we have negation of R, the or becomes an and. This is no longer negated. And then negation of P and just regular Q. Okay? So this is the contrapositive. And this is now a recap of all the things you should know how to negate. Okay? So the very first part of this unit, we talked about these sentences. Not all A are B, right? Or things of that sort. All dogs are cute. You can negate that and say, that's not true. There's at least one dog, right, that is not cute. Remember doing those at the first half of the unit? Okay? So that's from the sentences, and now we have these formulas, okay, that you need to know. So you got to memorize these. Okay? Now,